some people don't know the different types and styles in boxing. So three basic there's three basic types of boxing. Okay, and some boxers they can vary that. They can do all three. Okay, to some degree. But most boxers are specialized in one area. So the first type of boxer is the outboxer. The outboxer basically fights from outside the pocket. Remember what I told you guys the pocket is. The pocket is the place where both boxers can hit each other. So a boxer who has superior reach, for example, he can hit his opponent. His opponent can't hit him. He probably box outside the pocket. And he would probably use his jab quite a lot. Okay, he could jab quite a lot. So he'd be popping that jab, popping the jab, popping the jab, right? I don't turn over the mic. And he stays on the outside of the pocket. But he can hit his opponent can't hit him. So he box around his opponent, probably use more of the ring or the center of the ring. Then you have the boxer puncher. The boxer puncher is somebody who can also fight on the outside of the pocket, boxing, but he's got power. Sugar Ray Robinson was a good example of a boxer puncher. Now, just because a guy fight on the outside doesn't mean that he can't fight on the inside. He can't infight a little bit, or he can't trade in mid range. But he's known for fighting mostly on the outside. So you have outboxer, boxer puncher, and then the last person is swarmer. The swarmer is a fighter who generally he's aggressive, he applies pressure, and a swarmer will either swarm you at mid range or he will swarm you deep in the pocket and infight you. All right? Henry Armstrong was Gennady Golovkin is a swarmer, intelligent swarmer, but a swarmer. Uh, and so anybody who infights, Marcos Maidana, Jake LaMotta, Rocky Graciano, Rocky Castellini. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Swarmers, Mike Tyson. These are swarmers. These are guys who they have to get to the inside of you to get inside of what is called your reach. They try to get inside of this. They try to get inside of your reach, right? They try to get inside of you to do what they do. Okay? So basically, those are the kinds of fighters that you got. You got three basic kinds of fighters. Now, like I said before, boxer puncher or outboxer doesn't mean that they're not good at fighting on the inside or they're not good at fighting at mid-range, but they try to do most of their fights boxing from a distance. So some of those boxer types would be Sugar Ray Robinson, who's a boxer puncher. We had Oscar De La Hoya, who's a boxer puncher. We had Floyd Mayweather, who's a boxer. We have, let me see, who else? Who else do we have? It's like that. There's a number of boxer punchers, right? Shane Mosley was a boxer puncher. So, now, having said that, depending on the challenge that is ahead of a boxer, he may make an adjustment or adapt to that challenge. So, for example, Floyd Mayweather, who's a boxer and would mostly fight you on the outside, if you had a longer reach than him, he may still fight you on the outside and counter you, but draw you to him so he can get within your reach. Or he may step to you and actually slip and dip and bob and weave to get to the inside and fight you more at mid-range or the inside. And we've seen him do that against longer opponents like Oscar De La Hoya, guys like Canelo Alvarez, guys like Gennaro Hernandez, Diego Corrales, etc. Right? He would fight more to the inside of the opponent, or he had to go in and out. Manny Pacquiao versus most of his opponents had to go in and out. Now he's not swarming, but He is in a well, he's kind of swarming in a way because he's bombarding you with shots from different angles. But for the most part, once you get into the pocket and you start fighting deep inside the pocket, that's when you really call a swarmer, and you're the guy putting the pressure on the other guy. All right. So we have what is called the bull and the matador. The matador is the guy who may be boxing. The bull would be the guy who's applying the pressure. Okay. So I hope that this kind of helps. There are different styles of fighting. You can't just like the guys who just go at each other and throw punches. And that's great. Those fights are exciting and everything. But that's just one, that's two guys with just one style of fighting, which is I hit you, you hit me. So they may be both swarmers, for example, or they may be both boxers. But because of the two styles, they clash with each other and they really go at each other. Okay? And nobody takes a step back. And that's cool as well. You can still have defense and do that. But you really want to see a variety of styles of boxing. And then each boxer themselves has their own unique style of fighting. Okay? That's what makes boxing so interesting to me because each boxer brings something unique, a unique combination of skills and abilities, and you can look for the flaws in them if there are any, and you can look for the pluses in them. And what happens is when boxers fight each other, they learn from each other's styles, and they learn how to deal with those styles. And that's why boxing is a doing sport. You don't learn through talking about boxing. You learn through doing it. And the more you do it, is the better you will get at it. And the more you get more pro fights, is the more experience you get against guys coming to take your head off with 8 ounce or 10 ounce gloves. So that is why you hear OGs say, man, guys need to fight more often in the pro ranks in actual fights and not just sparring. And to some degree, that is true. However, the difference is that you've seen very great fighters who didn't have a lot of pro fights and did remarkable things and were all and are all-time greats. So that's not necessarily true. You don't need to and necessarily have, especially if you have a great amateur background. You don't really need to have a lot of pro fights necessarily, but you need to stay ready all year round. Take for instance Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Jake Paul doesn't have a lot of pro experience, but he's got thousands upon thousands of rounds of sparring against really, really good fighters and some great fighters maybe. And the whole point behind it is that that's what allowed him to get into the fight with Tyron Woodley and actually come out with the W. Okay, because he got hurt in sparring, he got stung in sparring, all of those things, and how to handle those situations he was able to have already in sparring, so he was prepared for a situation where he may have gotten hurt in an actual fight. So these are all things that I hope you guys um, would bear in mind when you're talking about boxing. I'm talking about the different styles of boxing because a lot of you don't know boxing at all, and you don't know that different people bring different kinds of styles to the table. Whether you like it or dislike it, you may come to appreciate those styles as you understand the intricacies of them. And I'm gonna tell you this: a guy who knocks out guys in the second, third round, he's actually has it easier than a guy who goes all 12 rounds, or all 15 rounds, or all 10 rounds, or all 8 rounds, because it takes a lot on your cardio, and you have to be in a certain shape or conditioning. You have to be able to pace yourself, and like Max Kellerman said, you have to be able to be composed, because if you're too excited or too tensed up, it actually burns out energy. So boxing's a very difficult sport for the body. Okay, you have to get in a certain level of shape. So when we talk about boxing shape, it's a totally different thing to just being fit. And a lot of people don't realize that because a lot of people are couch potatoes. But the hardest thing in boxing to do is fight tired, fight through the fatigue, and it takes a certain mental toughness. That's why we said boxing is 90% mental, 10% physical, because you can have all the skills in the world, you can have all the ability in the world. If mentally you're weak, and you won't push through certain circumstances. You won't be able to figure out certain circumstances because you're too weak to figure it out. You're ready to quit. And so it takes a special person to want to pursue boxing and to want to actually push themselves. Um, and it's a very honest sport. So whatever you put into it is what it'll give you back. So that's all I got for you guys for now. How much you need? Peace, guys. I'll see you guys later.